Is superbug the next biggest pandemic? In 2019, the world was hit by a deadly pandemic called COVID-19. It took away a lot of lives, our loved ones, and our family members. Because of this, I don't really enjoy talking about pandemics. However, keeping quiet is not an option. We need to be informed and be prepared for the future. In this video, I'm going to talk about drug-resistant superbug, how it is affecting us currently, and if care is not taken, it being the next biggest pandemic. I also have a very interesting personal experience about drug resistance to share with you. So I'll encourage you to stay tuned and watch this video to the end. Please do not forget to hit the notification button and also subscribe to the Lab Doctors channel for all your health information and education around the globe. Let's do this together. Let's get to know what superbugs are. So superbugs are pathogenic bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. It literally means that they are immune to antibiotics. So antibiotics are drugs or medicines that fight against bacterial infections or are used for treating bacterial infections. Approximately 750,000 to 1 million people die every year or each year due to drug-resistant infections globally, which translate to 2,625 to about 3,000 people die every day. Most of these people die from infections that could have been treated completely. But due to some practice on their side, such as misuse of antibiotics, overuse of antibiotics, they end up in these conditions. Though I'm elaborating more on antibacterial resistance, but it is not only the case. We have antiviral resistance, we have antifungal resistance, and as well as antiparasitic resistance. And all these are due to the abuse of drugs on our side. And when I talk about drug abuse, I mean self-medications, misuse of drugs, overuse of drugs, using wrong drugs or medications to treat wrong diagnosis. All these falls under drug abuse. It has become very difficult to treat some infections such as pneumonia, such as malaria infections. We have UTI and tuberculosis just because the existing medications are no more recently effective. Bacterial infections recently have become very difficult to treat due to their genetic mutations and their structural modifications. So when a bacteria is exposed to antibiotics, it also gives room to the bacteria to produce enzymes to degrade the antibiotics before it getting to its real target. So a study was conducted in 2019 in 41 different countries with the aim of knowing how effective antibiotics are in different populations and then among different individuals. And then it will surprise you to know that drug resistance, particularly antibiotics, was very high in Indians. They had 71.6 of antibiotic resistance or antibiotic drug resistance. That is very alarming. Not only in India, but there were a significant percentage of drug resistance, particularly antibiotics, among other populations. The studies went further to reveal that it is not only drug abuse that causes antibiotics or antibacterial drug resistance. However, the practice of some doctors also endanger some patients. Doctors even prescribe antibiotics to patients or clients who do not necessarily need them. Secondly, 55% of antibiotics were given to patients as prophylaxis or preventive drugs. Again, 45% of antibiotics were prescribed by doctors to patients as a treatment of an infection, specifically bacterial infection. According to these studies, by 2050, 10 million people will die each year due to drug superbug resistance. So this is my story time. So as a medical lab professional, I had the opportunity working in microbiology lab. So microbiology lab is a laboratory where we deal with virus, we deal with bacteria, we deal with fungi and parasites. So as part of my duty in the microbiology lab, I was working with bacteria. So we call it bacteriology. So this is where a lot of samples are brought in from different sides of the body. We have HVS, that is high vaginal swab. We have endocervical swab. We have sputum. We have urine. We have stool. We have blood. We have sample from the throat, from the ear, from all sides of the body. Cerebrospinal fluid. So basically, these are some of the samples that we work with, and the aim is to find a particular bacteria causing that specific disease at that particular place if a doctor diagnose the person of bacteria infection. This whole process is called culture, and then sensitivity. You provide nutrients that the bacteria needs to grow. So after growing the bacteria, you then you have different types of bacteria. You then do identification. So the identification is where you find a specific bacteria causing the specific infection at a specific site. After that, you then have to do sensitivity tests. The sensitivity is where you find a group of antibiotics that the bacteria that you have identified causing the infection is sensitive to. It literally means that you are finding antibiotics that can treat the particular bacteria that you have identified. So I observed or identified that some of these patients, if their sample comes in and it passes through all the process to the sensitivity test, you either get the last resort antibiotics that have high side effects, or you don't get any antibiotics at all for the person treatment. So basically what we do is that you have to redo the sensitivity test. So even after repeating, you still get most of them being resistant. It literally means all the antibiotics you are trying to find for the treatment of these patients' bacterial infections, they are not working. This draws the conclusion that the patient might have abused antibiotics previously. So some patients do self-diagnosis and self-medications as well. By so doing, you are giving the bacteria an opportunity to modify its structure to prevent future antibiotics from entering, and also giving this bacteria the room to produce enzymes to degrade future antibiotics before it even gets to the target. And so if proper measures are not put in place by various stakeholders, our next pandemic is going to be drug-resistant superbug. This is the Lab Doctors channel on YouTube. I will encourage you to subscribe to this channel, like our videos, share, comment, so that we can bring you more health education and information around the globe.